History is full of stories of courage, but some courage came with a chilling soundtrack. 16 nuns walked to their deaths, and they sang, not whispers, not cries, but songs of faith, defiance, and hope. Imagine this. The streets were lined with spectators, some curious, some jeering. The sound of wooden wheels on cobblestone echoed, and through it all, their voices rose above the chaos, chanting hymns, prayers, songs of unbroken devotion. They were condemned during the French Revolution, accused of crimes against the state, simply for living their faith. Their hands were bound, their faces serene, and as the guillotine waited at the end of the procession, their voices did something remarkable. They refused to be silenced. This wasn't just a march to death. It was a statement, a protest, a hymn of humanity in the face of horror. Today, we remember the nuns not only for their faith, but for their courage and the haunting songs that accompanied their final steps. The nuns came from different convents, different towns, but their voices blended as one. Every hymn carried decades of devotion. Every note defied the fear surrounding them. By the time they reached the Place de la Révolution, the crowd was quiet. Even the executioners paused, caught by the sheer humanity of their song. In that moment, these 16 women were more than victims. They were symbols. Symbols that fear could not completely erase. The morning of their execution was bitterly cold. Mist clung to the streets of Paris, shrouding the city in gray. The 16 nuns were escorted from their cells, their habits tattered but faces calm. Soldiers marched on either side, muskets glinting, bayonets sharp. The clatter of boots on cobblestones echoed like a drumbeat to their final hymn. They didn't stumble. They didn't scream. Instead, their voices rose in perfect harmony. Hymns of forgiveness, hope, and devotion. Songs taught over decades in silent convents now filled the streets with defiance. The crowd, initially rowdy, fell silent. Children stopped crying. Merchants froze in their stalls. Even the Revolutionary Guards lowered their eyes, unsure of how to react to such serene bravery. Their path was lined with reminders of the chaos outside. Burning buildings in the distance, pamphlets denouncing faith, and the ever-present shadow of the guillotine looming ahead. But the nuns' voices did not waver. Each step was a testament to years of training in prayer and song. One young nun, only 19, led the opening verse. Her voice trembled, but it was joined instantly by the others, creating a wave of sound that drowned out the jeers and anger. In that moment, these women became more than captives. They became a choir of defiance, a living reminder that faith and courage can persist even in the shadow of death. As they reached the final avenue, the city seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind carried their voices forward, as if Paris itself were listening. No chains could silence them. No fear could break them. No guillotine could stop their song. The Place de la Révolution spread before them like a stage, its cobblestones slick with morning dew. The guillotine loomed at the far end, its blade catching the pale sunlight, ready to fall. The 16 nuns formed a line, their hands bound, heads held high. Their habit swayed gently in the breeze, the fabric carrying decades of devotion and prayer. And still, they sang. The hymn began softly, almost a whisper, but as they advanced, the sound grew, filling the square. It was a melody of hope and reconciliation, a song that spoke of forgiveness even for those who condemned them. Spectators could not look away. Some wept quietly. Some crossed themselves. Even some of the soldiers felt a twinge of unease as the purity of their voices cut through the tension. A nun, older than the rest, faltered for just a moment, her knees shaking. But the youngest reached for her hand. A reassuring squeeze, a glance, and the hymn continued unbroken. The wind carried their voices over the square. Every note, every syllable, became a statement. We will not be erased. We are here. We exist. Rumors later said that the crowd, moved by their bravery, fell silent. The usual jeers and laughter of the condemned were gone. Only the ethereal sound of these 16 women, singing on the way to death. The nuns knew the end was inevitable, yet each step was deliberate. Each chant a defiance, each note a testament. No fear, no hatred, no blade could take away their humanity. In that brief, terrifying procession, Paris bore witness not to fear, but to faith that refused to be silenced. They reached the foot of the guillotine. The crowd parted slightly, whispers spreading like wine through the square. The nuns formed a semicircle, bound hands clasped, eyes lifted toward the sky. Their breaths were steady, their voices unwavering. The final hymn began. Slow, deliberate, haunting, each note a declaration of dignity in the face of death. The blade above them reflected the sunlight in a cold metallic gleam, but their eyes never faltered. They sang not only for themselves but for those left behind, for the faith that could not be destroyed, for the generations that would remember. One nun's voice rose above the rest, not in fear, but in strength. It carried hope and sorrow, pride and sorrow, a complex beauty that made the square fall silent. The executioner prepared the guillotine, hands steady, his expression unreadable. He had performed countless executions, yet even he paused, caught by the solemnity and courage of these women. People in the crowd felt the gravity of the moment. Mothers clutched their children. Soldiers glanced away. The square seemed to hold its breath as the hymn reached its climax. In those final moments, time slowed. The nuns were not victims. They were symbols. Symbols of faith, courage, and unbroken humanity. The blade fell, and yet their legacy continued. The songs they sang echoed in memory long after the square emptied, long after the crowds dispersed. They had faced death with serenity and strength. They had transformed fear into beauty. They had shown that courage could be sung as much as it could be wielded. Even in death, the 16 nuns had conquered more than the guillotine could ever take away. The story of the 16 nuns did not end with the fall of the guillotine. It lived on in whispers, in songs, in the hearts of those who heard it. Their courage became a symbol of defiance against tyranny. Not through violence, not through arms, but through faith, song, and unwavering spirit. Historians later wrote of their procession, describing the haunting hymns that echoed across the square. Artists painted the scene. 16 women in habits, faces serene, hands bound, singing to the heavens. Poets immortalized the sound of voices rising above fear and hatred. Even centuries later, their story resonates. It reminds us that true power is not always in dominance or brutality, but in steadfast courage and grace in the face of certain death. The streets of Paris may have changed, the guillotine dismantled, the revolution faded, but the legacy of these nuns remained, etched into memory. Their final hymn is more than a melody. It is a testament. Faith and humanity can persist even in the darkest times. Fear can be transformed into beauty. Death cannot silence the courageous. In classrooms, in churches, in the quiet corners of history books, their story endures. 16 voices, once bound for execution, continue to inspire. A reminder that even when all seems lost, the human spirit can rise and sing. So when history tells stories of fear, oppression, and violence, remember the 16 nuns who sang on the way to the guillotine. Not because they survived, but because their courage and song ensured that they would never be forgotten.